Sup guys, it's Alex here, and welcome to the February 18th edition of the Bracketology Update. Man, this was another crazy weekend of college basketball where we had Louisville lose twice in the past week. We had Baylor absolutely destroy West Virginia. We had Georgetown go into Butler and get a victory there without their top two players. And there was just a ton of other stuff going along with those different things. As you can see, there's a ton of movement that we have to talk about in this new bracketology thing. But before I get started with the bracketology, I just want to go ahead and let you guys know about the NCAA tournament ticket giveaway. I've talked about it before. I'll keep talking about it with every different bracketology update that I do. If I hit 5,000 subscribers by March 17th, which is the it's the playing game or whatever. If I hit 5,000 by then, I will be giving away a first-round NCAA, or I'll be giving away 2 first-round NCAA tournament tickets. I'll be doing a drawing, and each winner will get 1 ticket, but I'll be doing 2 winners. Right now, we're at 4,090, which means, actually, when I was setting this stuff up, we were at 4,080, so we're getting a couple more subscribers, so thank you guys for subscribing if you already are. If you're not subscribed already, make sure you are, and the details for that and how to enter are in the comment section below. All you gotta do is just DM me a screenshot of you being subscribed to AlexPrice24, which is my Instagram. Make sure you follow that as well. And while we're on the topic of Instagram, make sure you follow Selection Sunday updates on Instagram as well. They are a huge page here on Instagram, as you can see from the followers right there. They post great updates on the different NCAA basketball news and notes going on. As you can see, they do predictions and debates and all that good stuff. They are a great page to follow, but without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the kind of analysis part of it. There is a lot of movement along the different seed lines and stuff, with a lot of different teams winning and losing this past weekend. But up here in the top left regional, we have LSU moving down to an 8 seed with Baylor still having the 1. Baylor and Kansas will play this weekend, which I'll touch on more in Friday's edition of the Bracketology. But that's going to be a great game to watch. The playing game, as you can see, is Utah State and East Tennessee State, which I really love East Tennessee State. We'll kind of see what happens with that in the bracketology. But up next, we have Creighton up to a 4, Butler down to a 6, Penn State is now up to a 3 seed, which is absolutely crazy. Really rooting for them this season. Michigan is now up to a 7, and Northern Iowa has fallen down to a 10 after losing at Loyola Chicago this past weekend. Then down here in the East Regional, we have San Diego State remaining the 1 seed, Marquette up to a 5, Auburn down to a 4. They did lose at Missouri this past weekend, but it was without Isaac Okoro, who's a potential lottery pick, so I won't hold it against them too much. They did end up losing, which I will hold against them, but not as, there is a little asterisk next to it, I would say. Then we have Wright State up to a 13, Ohio State up to a 6. They are getting back on track after I've been trashing them for the most of the beginning of February. Then we have Colgate down to a 14, Iowa down to a 7, and Montana up to a 15. Then over here in the top right regional, I think that one's the Midwest, where I'll be going to at least the Elite Eight game in Indianapolis. Haven't decided about Sweet 16. At this point, it's probably not looking like I'll be going to the Sweet 16 games, but I'll be definitely going to the Elite Eight ones. BYU is up to a 6. Oh, I forgot to mention Austin Peay's down to a 16 or whatever, and Kansas is the 1. BYU is up to a 6. Louisville is down to a 3, and I will be going to the Louisville, North Carolina game this weekend at Louisville, but I will not be recording because I'll be going with a special someone, so I might post a couple of pictures and stuff, which you guys might see if you follow my Instagram, but other than that, I won't be having like a vlog or anything going out. Then we have UC Irvine up to a 14, Texas Tech down to a 7, Xavier up to a 10, and then Little Rock is down to a 15. Then in the West Regional, we have Gonzaga remaining the 1 seed there. Illinois is down to an 8. Their losses just keep piling up at this point. Florida is up to a 9. Arizona is up to a 5. Michigan State, as you can see, is down to a 6. They just keep on losing too. They did get the road win over Illinois, but that was just because Illinois' top player did get injured on that final play of the game, and then they ended up losing again this past weekend to Maryland. Then the playing game is USC and Georgetown. Georgetown has played their way into the field. Then we have South Dakota State up to a 14. Florida State up to a 2 on the 2 line, and then Winthrop is down to a 15. So if we check the bubble 2, on the bubble, last 4 byes are Wichita State, Xavier, Virginia, and Arizona State. Then the last 4 in are East Tennessee State, USC, Utah State, and Georgetown. First 4 out are Indiana, Alabama, Richmond, and Mississippi State. And then the next 4 out are Stanford, NC State, VCU, and Providence. So if we go to the bracketology, I know you guys keep wanting me to post this on like as a link or whatever in the YouTube comment section or on like a website or something, but I cannot do that. For some reason, I just can't like attach a link to a document. I can only attach links to websites and stuff. And I keep looking for a way for you guys to be able to do like an interactive bracket. I've been getting suggestions for like Bracket Ninja, but you have to pay for an account if it's over 16 teams. But that's just kind of a side thing. I'll keep looking out for that stuff and hopefully have an interactive thing in time for the tournament. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get into the picks. Up first, we'll have Baylor. Obviously, they're going to beat the winner of St. Peter's and Norfolk State. Then we're going to have LSU, which I think is a bit underseeded here as an 8 seed. They ended up losing to Alabama this past weekend. I think they're a bit underseeded here as an 8. They're going to beat St. Mary's. They're going to go with East Tennessee State beating Utah State and then beating Colorado as my first like little upset pick here of the tournament, and a 12-5 over Colorado. I really like East Tennessee State this season. I'm going to go with Creighton beating Stephen F. Austin. Creighton's been looking really good recently. They're playing the best basketball out of any team in the Big East, and they have one of the best offenses in the Big East as of right now. I'm going to go with another upset pick here. I'm going to go with Virginia over Butler. Virginia forces teams to play such a slow pace of basketball, and Butler's just been doing horrible since like the turn of the calendar year. They are now down to a 6 after being a projected 1 at one point. I think Virginia's able to pull off the upset there. Then we have Penn State beating Hofstra. I think that Michigan will hold off in Northern Iowa. Northern Iowa is just not looking good as of late. And then Dayton will beat Bowling Green. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we got Baylor over LSU. Then we have Creighton. I think they will hold off East Tennessee State, though I'd love to see East Tennessee State win that one. Penn State, I think, will be able to make the Sweet 16 here as a 3 seed. Then I'm going to go with Dayton beating Michigan with Obi Toppin. Then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to go with Baylor, who hasn't lost a game since November 8th. They're on a 22-game win streak at this point. They're going to the Elite Eight there over Creighton. I'm going to go with Obi Toppin and Dayton. I know it's kind of like a 1 versus 2 here, but that'll change throughout the course of the rest of the bracket. Baylor versus Dayton, this was my championship game and a couple other bracketologies that I've done, but I'm going to go with Baylor winning that one. I just can't root against them. I mean, not root against them, pick against them at this point. They only lost 1 time this entire season, and then they led most of that game against Washington, which I say basically every time I do the bracketologies. But I mean, it's true, they're playing the best basketball out of any team in the nation right now, and they deserve to go to the Final Four. So up next down here in the bottom left regional, this will be the East region. We have San Diego State beating North Florida. Rutgers, I think, can hold off Oklahoma there. Marquette with Marcus Howard, who is the Big East all-time leading scorer. They'll move on past Yale. I'm going to go with Auburn over Wright State. Ohio State, I think, will be Arizona State. Seton Hall will hold off Colgate. I'm going to go with Iowa. I know I'm going all chalk here. I just realized that. But, I mean, these are the best teams. I don't really see any upsets happening in this first round thing here, but you'll see what happens on the right side. I'm going to go with Iowa with Luke Garza. They're kind of falling off the map, kind of like Illinois as of late, but Luke Garza is still one of the best players in the nation. I think they can get the victory there. Then Duke will be Iowa. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we have San Diego State beating Rutgers. Marquette with Marcus Howard, I think, can beat Auburn. Auburn just doesn't have a ton of quality wins this season. They have a ton of wins, but not all of them are quality wins. I'd say their best one was probably that home win against Kentucky, which as a Kentucky fan, I hold an asterisk as next to that just because they shot 44 free throw attempts, which is really dumb. Then we go with Seton Hall beating Ohio State with Miles Powell. Seton Hall has been kind of falling off the map recently, or not falling off the map. I think they've lost like 2 of their last 3 games, and this last one to Providence was not a good look for them. And I think that Duke will hold off Iowa there. And then for a spot in the Elite Eight, we're going to have San Diego State as the one. They haven't lost all season, and I don't see them losing here. They're going to face the winner of Seton Hall and Duke, which I'm going to go with Duke. I know in these past few bracketologies, I've been picking Seton Hall to beat Duke, but it's been a one-man show with Miles Powell recently, and they've lost 2 out of their last 3, so I can't really pick them there to beat Duke, especially with the amount of talent that Duke possesses. Then for a spot in the Final Four, I'm going to go with Duke. I know that it pains me to do this as a Kentucky fan and as just a college basketball fan in general. I really want to see San Diego State win that one. If they do end up facing off, I definitely would be rooting for San Diego State, but Duke is the more talented team at this point. Obviously, they're going to be more battle-tested with the amount of games against top-quality opponents that the ACC has to offer. So up next, we'll go over here to the top right regional, where we have Kansas as the 1 seed. Then we're going to have them beat Austin Peay, who is a representative from the OVC. Then we have Wisconsin versus Rhode Island. This one's a really hard one for me to pick. I haven't been able to decide. I think I've been going back and forth throughout the course of these last few bracketologies where they've been matched up. But I think here I'm going to go with Wisconsin. They've been getting some quality wins recently. They do have like 10 losses, but I think they lead the nation in the number of Quadrant 1 wins, which I think they have like 6 or 7, which is actually really impressive. And then I'm going to go with an upset pick here. I'm going to go with Vermont over Oregon. Or if you guys have been watching my recent bracketologies, you know that Oregon has been one of my favorite teams to keep moving forward and put into the Final Four. But they also have been kind of faltering as of late. And I think that Vermont's one of the best lower mid-major teams, I think they could definitely pull off the upset here. I'm going to go with Vermont over Oregon. Oregon, I just don't know what to think of them at this point. Then Kentucky, I think, will be able to hold off against New Mexico State. Kentucky did not play that well against Ole Miss on Saturday. Kentucky's actually been playing better on the road, where they're at number 10 in offensive efficiency, than at home, where they're number 51. So I don't know what's happening with that split. They also lost at home against Evansville, which is a bad loss too. Then we have BYU as a 6th seed now. I think that they can beat Cincinnati there. BYU is one of the best shooting teams in the nation, and they just drown you in the amount of shots that they take. Then I think that Louisville, you know what, I'm going to have them lose to UC Irvine. We got to have that top huge upset pick here. I know I put Louisville in the Final Four in my last bracketology, but that was before. They just keep losing. Jordan Nwora over the past week, who's supposed to be their best player and National Player of the Year contender, had more turnovers last week with 8 than he had actual points. So I'm going to go with UC Irvine pulling off the huge upset here as a 14-3 and have them beat Louisville. Then we have Texas Tech beating Xavier and Maryland beating Little Rock. Then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we have Kansas versus Wisconsin. I think that Kansas is going to win that one. Kentucky, I think, will be able to hold off against Vermont here. Then I'm going to go with BYU beating UC Irvine and putting BYU in the Sweet 16. That's such a weird thing for me to say. Then Maryland, I think, will be able to beat Texas Tech. I know I haven't been giving Maryland much respect as of late. Then I think that Kentucky will end up losing to Kansas, as much as I want to pick Kentucky to move on there against Kansas. Kentucky's just been way too inconsistent on offense, and Kansas has been killing their opponents recently. Then I'm going to go with Maryland beating BYU. Maryland has been turning a new leaf. I know they've always been faltering once the calendar turns to February. I think they were 14-14 over the past 4 seasons in February. I think that they can get the job done there against BYU. And then I think they can get the job done here and move on to the Final Four against Kansas. Then in the bottom right regional, we got Gonzaga beating the winner of Prairie View A&M and Robert Morris. Doesn't matter who ends up winning that one. Illinois, I think, will beat Florida. I think that Ayo Dosunmu, or however you pronounce his name, I think he's supposed to be back in time for the tournament. If he's not back, that's definitely a win for Florida, but if he is, I think Illinois can pull off that victory. Then I'm going to go with another 12-5. I think I've done 3 12-5 picks in this tournament. I'm going to go with Furman beating Arizona. Furman out of the Southern Conference. They are a really, really good team. I think that not too many people know about them. They beat Villanova at the beginning of the season last year, so I mean that may be the only time you've heard of them, but they are really good. I think they can beat the inexperienced Arizona team. Villanova, it's going to set up a match against Villanova in the tournament. I didn't even realize that little storyline thing, but that's to come later. Oh my gosh. Then we got Michigan State versus the winner of UNC and Georgetown, which I think would be Georgetown, but I think that Michigan State with Cassius Winston is going to move forward there. Then we got West Virginia beating South Dakota State. Purdue, I think, can beat Houston. Purdue's getting an alarming number of losses. I think they're 14-12 as a 10 seed, which is pretty crazy. But I think that they can get the victory there if they can turn it on. I know they've been off these last few games, but I think they can get the job done. And then Florida State will beat Winthrop. And then for a spot in the Sweet 16, we have Gonzaga beating Illinois. Furman and Villanova, as I mentioned earlier, it's a rematch of what they did last year. And you know what? Might as well go with last year's results. Why not make this the March Madness tournament we all deserve and have Furman moving on to the Sweet 16 as a 12 seed? Then Michigan State, I think, will be able to beat West Virginia, and West Virginia's streak of not reaching the Sweet 16 in my bracketologies continue with their 2 losses this past week. Then we have Purdue and Florida State. Obviously, I'm going to have Florida State win that one. They're a really good team this year. Gonzaga and Furman, as much as I'd love to see Furman pull off the upset there, I got to go with Gonzaga. Then actually I'm going to go with Michigan State pulling off the victory here in a 6-2 upset of Florida State. I think that Michigan State could easily pull off the upset here against Florida State. I hate doing that to Florida State. They're a really impressive team, but I think Michigan State, with the amount of talent they have with Cassius Winston leading them forward, I think they can get the job done here against Florida State. Then for a spot in the Final Four, Gonzaga versus Michigan State. Why not let it fly? Why not have a 6 seed in the Final Four with Michigan State? I know they've been faltering as of late, but we got to put a little bit of craziness in the Final Four, and putting Michigan State in the Final Four as a 6 seed is not too crazy. They made it as a 7 seed back in 2015, so that's something to keep in mind. Then for a spot in the national championship game, Baylor versus Duke. I'm going to go with Baylor. I mean, they're the hottest team in the nation right now, 22 straight wins. Why not go with them beating Duke, beat the perennial all ACC representative and one of the best teams in college basketball? Then Maryland and Michigan State. As much as I want to pick Michigan State here, we got to go with recent history. I mean, it just happened this past weekend where Maryland went to Michigan State and beat them on their home court, so why can't they beat them on a neutral floor? we have Maryland moving on to the national championship game here against Baylor. And for the national championship, we are going to go with Baylor. I know it's picking the number 1 overall seed to win, but they have been the best team for a reason. They are going to win the national championship here, as you can see in my bracketology. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel and make sure you enter the NCAA tournament ticket giveaway. We only have like 70 entries or something like that so far. Thought it'd be a little bit more than that, but hey, I mean, if it stays low or whatever, that benefits your chances. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe if you did, and I will see you all later.